Somewhere beneath the dust of the ancient world, there is a city that should have been remembered forever. A city so vast that ancient writers described it in the same breath as Rome and Alexandria. A city whose markets once handled the trade of 3 continents, whose harbors were crowded with ships from Egypt, Persia, and Greece. And then, without a final battle or a catastrophic eruption to mark its end, it simply vanished from the map of human knowledge. The city is called Iram of the Pillars. The Arabs called it the Atlantis of the Sands. And for more than 2,000 years, historians, explorers, and archaeologists have searched the vast emptiness of the Arabian Peninsula for a single stone that might prove it ever existed at all. The ancient texts are unambiguous about one thing: Iram was real. It appears in the Quran in chapter 89, described as a city of towering columns unlike anything ever built in all the land. It appears in pre-Islamic Arabic poetry, in the accounts of Greek traders, and in the records of merchants who claim to have passed through its gates on the great incense road that once connected southern Arabia to the Mediterranean world. These were not myth-makers. These were accountants and geographers and soldiers writing down what they had seen or what their fathers had told them. So where is it? The Arabian empty quarter, the Rub al Khali, covers 650,000 square kilometers of shifting sand. It is the largest continuous sand desert on Earth. Swallows whole. It has buried camel caravans, ancient wells, and stone roads beneath dunes that move and reform with each decade. If Iram is down there, the desert has had 2,000 years to hide it, and it has done its job with terrifying thoroughness. But in 1992, a satellite spotted something beneath the sand that changed everything, and also raised a question that no one has been able to answer since. To understand why Iram matters, you have to understand what southern Arabia was in the ancient world. This was not a backwater. This was not empty desert at the edge of civilization. In the centuries before the birth of Christ, the kingdoms of southern Arabia, Sheba, Hadramaut, Kataban, and Ma'in, were among the wealthiest on earth. Their wealth came from 2 things: frankincense and myrrh. These were not luxury items in the ancient world. They were necessities. Every temple in Rome burned them. Every royal burial in Egypt required them. Every physician in Greece used myrrh as medicine. And the only place in the world where these resins grew in commercial quantities was the coastal mountains and valleys of what is now Yemen and Oman. The incense trade was, for several centuries, the most profitable long-distance trade route on the planet. Caravans of up to 3,000 camels would set out from the frankincense groves of Dhofar and make the slow, brutal journey north through the Arabian Peninsula toward the markets of Gaza, Damascus, and Alexandria. The journey took roughly 70 days. Along the route, a network of trading cities grew up, way stations where caravans could rest, water their animals, pay their tolls, and resupply for the next leg. Some of these cities became extraordinarily rich simply by sitting in the right place at the right time. Iram, according to the ancient sources, was the greatest of them. It was described as a fortified city of immense stone columns, pillars so tall and so numerous that travelers approaching across the desert could see them rising above the dunes from a full day's march away. The ruler of Iram, a king named Shaddad ibn Ad, is described in Arabic tradition as a man of almost insane ambition, a king who built his city as a rival to paradise itself, layering it with gold and silver and precious stones until it shone like a star in the desert night. Whether Shaddad ibn Ad was a real historical figure or a legend layered over a real city is a question archaeologists still argue about. What is harder to argue with is the archaeology that began to emerge in the late 20th century. Evidence that pointed unmistakably to something buried deep in the Rub al Khali. In 1992, a team led by archaeologist Juris Zurins makes an announcement that sends shockwaves through the academic world. Using declassified spy satellite imagery from the American Corona program, originally designed to photograph Soviet military installations during the Cold War, Zurins and his colleagues identify a series of ancient caravan tracks converging beneath the sands of southern Oman near a place called Shisr. From above, the tracks are unmistakable. They radiate outward like the spokes of a wheel, and they all point to the same buried point in the desert. Whatever is at the center of those tracks, something once drew thousands of travelers toward it across centuries of desert crossing. The team excavates at Shisr and finds a fortified settlement with massive circular towers, a large central space consistent with a marketplace, and artifacts dating back nearly 5,000 years. The site sits directly on the ancient incense road. Zurins declares it Ubar, another name used in Arabic tradition for the lost city, sometimes used interchangeably with Iram. The international press erupts. The Los Angeles Times calls it the Atlantis of the sands found at last. For a brief, electric moment, it seems like one of history's great mysteries has been solved. But then the complications begin. Other archaeologists examine the site and raise serious objections. Shisr is significant, they argue, but it is far too small to match the descriptions in the ancient texts. The settlement covers roughly a third of a hectare. The city described by ancient writers was said to hold tens of thousands of people, to have markets large enough to process the entire annual output of the frankincense groves, to have walls visible from a day's march away. Shisr is a way station, a fortified well, an important one certainly, but not a metropolis. Here is the detail that most people never hear. The site at Shisr did not simply fall into ruin. Collapsed. Literally. Beneath the settlement lies a massive limestone cavern, and sometime around 300 AD, the cavern ceiling gave way, swallowing a significant portion of the ancient structures in a matter of hours. What the desert did not bury, the earth itself consumed. And if a larger city, the true Iram, existed nearby, it may have met the same fate, its towers and columns and golden walls dropping silently into the dark below the sand while the desert closed over the top and left no mark at all. In the days after the collapse at Shisr, the incense road goes quiet. The caravans stop coming. And a city that had stood at the center of the ancient world's most profitable trade route disappears from every map ever drawn again. The incense trade that built Iram did not survive the ancient world. By the 4th century AD, the Roman Empire had converted to Christianity, and the great temples that burned frankincense by the cartload had closed their doors forever. The demand collapsed almost overnight. The caravans thinned. The way station cities emptied out one by one, their populations drifting toward the coasts or northward into the settled lands of the Fertile Crescent. The desert, patient as it always is, moved back in. Within a generation or two, the sand had reclaimed roads that had been walked by millions of feet across 5 centuries of continuous use. The greatest trade network in the ancient Arabian world did not end with a war or a plague. It ended with a change in fashion, and the cities it had sustained vanished as quietly as smoke. What makes Iram different from other lost cities is not simply that we cannot find it. It is that we cannot even be certain what we are looking for. Pompeii was buried whole. Troy left a hill. Even the lost cities of the Amazon left traces in the soil that modern LiDAR technology can now read like a map. But the Rub al Khali offers almost nothing. The dunes shift by meters every decade. Ground-penetrating radar struggles in the deep sand. The heat makes sustained excavation nearly impossible for much of the year. And the region sits inside the borders of countries that have not always welcomed foreign archaeological teams with open arms. There are researchers today who believe Iram is still findable. New satellite technology, more sensitive than anything Zurins had in 1992, is being turned toward the empty quarter with fresh eyes. A handful of teams are working quietly, following the logic of the ancient caravan routes, looking for the convergence point that would mark a city large enough to match the old descriptions. They have not found it yet. But somewhere beneath those dunes, if the ancient writers were telling even a fraction of the truth, there are pillars still standing in the dark. A city that once shone like a star in the desert night, waiting in perfect silence for someone to remember where they left it. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. A new piece of history drops every week. Share this video with someone who loves history. Comment below. What part of this story surprised you most?